Okay, so once we have our curves that we want drawn out, the next thing we got to do is we want to turn these into solid objects, right? So let's just go ahead and let's turn that picture off. Okay, so now we can see we've got a handful of different objects. This one is actually an invalid object because remember we use that to scale the image. So I'm just going to ignore that for now. But now we're going to turn these into solid objects. So with these selected, let's just get out of our top view here. Let's come back into perspective. Okay, so now we know we can see that they're not flat that they are flat and that they're not three-dimensional objects. If they're not flat, like let's imagine that when you were drawing, and this happens all the time, maybe you're drawing in space and you got all sorts of wacky things going on here that from the top view. So if we look at this object here, everything looks completely correct, right? But maybe when you actually look at it in perspective, it's all wonky like this. Well, we can use the set point command again. And we're just going to set all those points in the z-axis. And there we go. Okay, now it's back to the way it is. And that happens sometimes if you have objects floating in space and or if maybe your picture plane is not at the origin, it's going to want to sort of return back to the origin. And you might look at your work and go, it's wonky, it's not right. Use the set point command to sort of clean it up, get your points back to a certain plane. Because having those points on a flat plane is going to be vital to the next steps. Okay. And maybe I'm just going to undo that just as an example for you. I'm going to use this as an extreme example. But the next step to making this into a solid would be to use your gumball tool here. And in this case, I'm going to actually draw your attention to this little circle that's around the gumball here. And if you click on that and release it, I can tell it to extrude 4 inches upward. Okay. Now that will only work really well for me uh, if it's flat, because if it's like this, it's going to extrude it up, and it's going to extrude it up into this royal mess that's going on here. Okay, and then we can't really take this any further. I mean, you can, but it's really complex how to do that. Because here, the next step would be to just run the cap command. Okay, if I just type in cap, you'll note that it's gone from the extrude to this open sort of thing. If I can control Z, right, it's open. It's like this open box sort of thing. Now, if I just run cap, oops, control Z, cap, it's closed that in. Now we've got a closed poly surface, right? And if I type in the what command, which is a really good command to sort of ask Rhino, what is this thing that I've selected? It says it's a valid poly surface, a closed solid poly surface, and it'll give you all sorts of data on that, okay? But if I come back to this one, and let's say I extrude this 4 inches upwards, I can't run that cap command. If I try and I hit enter, it says unable to cap one object. The openings did not have closed planar loops of edges, okay? And that comes back to the problem of the original drawing. So if I delete that, then I'm just going to take this and I'm going to run the set point, okay? And I'm going to make sure that the Z is set to 0, hit enter. Oops. Okay, hit OK. There we go. Oh, and it wants me to set the location of point. So I have to click on something, or I could just type in 0, 0, 0. And because it's going to set those points in the z-axis, it'll set it to the 0 point on the plane. Okay, and now I can run that again. Now I can extrude 4 inches up, and it's create a nice extrusion of that object, right? And then now I can cap that. And there we go. Okay. So, and then now we can manipulate our objects however we like, right? Now we can make them interact in sort of crazy ways. intersect them like that. In the next video, I'm going to show you some basics on Boolean commands to give you an idea how those work.